Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality podcast, is brought to you by eMenuChoice Point of Sale and Clark Pro. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, I'm chatting with Dan Shaughnessy. Dan is the Vice President of Customer Success at eMenuChoice Point of Sale. His career has spanned banking, fintech, and now point of sale services. He has an extensive background working with software as a service and has brought that experience to his role with eMenuChoice. Dan, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you, Aaron. Good to talk with you.
So, with your background, obviously, you would normally think that somebody who has been in point of sale, who does work in point of sale, would have a food service background or is some sort of customer service or retail background. And that's not really the case with you. So tell us a little bit about your journey from banking into the world of senior living point of sale.
Sure. So probably the most relevant experience is I spent about 18 years supporting software as a service. I was an account executive for the largest fintech company in the country. And so I learned a lot about working with people and software. And of course, when eMenuChoice was first starting, one of the founders came to me and said they were looking for somebody to help with the customer side of things. And I said, well, I don't really know anything about food service. I don't know anything about point of sale. I don't know anything about senior living. And that's all of our spots. And he said, that's okay. We can teach you that. What we can't teach you is the part about how to interact with software and how to train people and that sort of thing. So I started up. I was the second person hired here. We had about 20 people or 20 customers at the time. Since that time, we've grown to, I think, over 550. And we've had, I think, I've probably talked to thousands of people, either helping them implement eMenuChoice, doing demos for them, et cetera. And of course, very quickly I learned. And one of the things is eMenuChoice being a software as a service solution. The back end, it's different words, but the idea is still the same. It's software. The idea, of course, behind software is how do we make what you're doing easier? Software should work for you. You shouldn't work for the software. And so I've always tried to apply that when we're working with our customers. So that's really how I got here. I've really enjoyed the industry. I think it's a really vital industry that we're in, and it's great to be talking with you and talking to those people in senior living that really are trying to provide a great service to people.
And what you're saying makes sense. Like I always talk about you got to hire a fit for your company and for certain things that you're missing. You can always teach them the basics. And so it makes total sense that they would have brought you in with that background. And so one of the reason we're talking today, and this is the piece I think about, it's such a struggle for me when I talk to operators who look at point of sale as a nice to have option as opposed to a need to have service. And what I find a lot of times is they get really dialed into all of the talk around, hey, if you implement a point of sale, well, maybe we can use it to capture revenue. We can generate some more money. We can use that to improve our bottom line. And I think there's just so much more that comes with using point of sale that I think as an industry should know more about and learn more about. And so I want to talk with you about kind of the non-revenue aspects of point of sale. And so I'd love to start with kitchen efficiency and what kind of benefits you've seen customers at eMenuChoice and from other point of sale systems too. What kind of benefits can they see in enhancing their kitchen efficiency with a point of sale system?
And a lot of when we talk about kitchen efficiency, a lot of these things are kind of intertwined with each other. But think about this from a kitchen efficiency standpoint. If I'm an assisted living community, I'm not charging my residents for meals. I might have guest charges, I might have delivery charges and that sort of thing. I might want to offer more choice to my residents than just giving them one or two items a day and saying you get chicken or fish.
Mhm.
And how can I do that in an efficient way? Well, one of the ways might be that I go ahead and I ask people ahead of time what they want so that I can make sure and prepare that ahead of time, or at least be ready to prepare it at mealtime. I can record that in software. Somebody I can tally up what everybody wants. I can prepare it, and I don't have any food waste because I'm not guessing. I'm not saying ahead of time, well, I need to make 50 of this and 25 of this. And then if somebody only gets 30 of whatever the choice is, they're going to have food waste.
Yeah.
So just from that way, it helps. And then talking about being intertwined, reporting is another big thing. If you're in assisted living, now depending upon the state, every state has different rules and regulations. There's a lot of requirements as far as reporting and tracking what happens with your residents. So from reporting standpoint, doing things like what did the residents eat? Did they eat? That sort of thing. And somehow you've got to track that. And if you are not using a point of sale, that all becomes paper, and
Mhm.
paper is notoriously inaccurate, and it's also hard to use. So those are all things that if you think about big picture, of course, a point of sale, if you have one, you're going to have the revenue component of it. That's given. But the reality of it is there's a lot of things that communities do that they can do better if they can have those things recorded and have somebody kind of tracking things for them as they move forward.
Yeah, I always think of it as what data are you using to better manage your operation, right? And like you mentioned, I remember having one dining director prior to implementing the point of sale in their community. He was tracking everything, revenue, meals, everything on an Excel spreadsheet, which kudos to him for doing that. But the amount of time that it took him to take all the orders and put them in a spreadsheet and then make sure he didn't miss anything. He probably spent 10, 15 hours a week just making sure he had all the data correctly. And so I can't imagine in any operation trying to do that, especially if you're a larger operation. So what one thing that I think is really important, and I think about this when we're talking about the evolution of kind of this transition into the older boomers and how they're going to start over the next 3 to 5 years, really being more of that focus of the residents we're serving. They're going to want more choice and they're going to want more opportunity, more variety. And so thinking about being in an assisted living community where you've got 3 meals a day and you've got to continue to keep them kind of wowed and impressed with what they're offering. How does using a point of sale effectively really support this concept or this idea of resident choice?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts of that. The first part is how do you know what people like? In other words, how do you track what is popular on the menu and what isn't? But the other part of it is how, as a community, do you get to the point of knowing that the next generation that's coming into your community is not going to be as accepting of having two choices a day on the menu?
Mm.
We talk to communities from time to time where they're considering a point of sale or considering changes. And a lot of times, the driver behind the change is that right now they don't have a good way to offer more than one choice or two choices a day to the residents.
Yeah.
And so, and in some cases, you talk to the executive chef, and they're like, "Well, I know what all my residents like every day." And I'm like, "Well, you probably don't. You probably have a
Right.
good idea on some of them, but what if you're not there? Are you there 24/7, 365? Who knows what they like then?" And the other thing you hear is uh, the current generation has been much more accepting of not having a choice and not really speaking up if they didn't get what they like.
Yeah.
And that isn't going to be the case with the next generation is used to going out to eat more regularly. They're used to having choice. They're used to being satisfied. They're not going to move into your community if they don't get the choices that they want. So having the ability to offer those choices, making it efficient for the kitchen to be able to do that. And as the founder who hired me to eMenuChoice told me as I was starting here, he's like, why shouldn't people get the same choices they have in life at the end of their life as they've had the rest of them? And I think that that's always really stuck with me is like I think about people in my life that have been older and thinking of, well, today your choice is chow mein or a grilled cheese sandwich. You don't like either of those, too bad. You're going to have one. You probably won't eat. And we all know a lot of times as people get older, getting them to eat is an important part of what they do.
Yeah.
So making sure that the experience, not only for the staff is good and useful, but also making sure the experience for residents is there is really important.
Yeah. And I think one aspect of it that people don't think about is that implementing a point of sale and working out the kinks and making sure that it's working for your system the way you want it to, for your community the way you want it to, isn't a 30-day process, right? It's not a just drop it in and away you go, right? Like there's so much more to that. And I would say there's this phrase that the best time to do something was 2 years ago, but the second best time is now. And so, yes, we're still kind of waiting for those boomers to start really being the main population, but we got to get prepared for them now. And being able to start offering that choice and the giving those residents dignity around that, I think is really important. And so, one area that we didn't really talk about was thinking about resident safety, right? Trying to manage diets and allergies and managing what all that looks like can be really, really difficult. There's nothing worse than walking in and seeing like that bulletin board full of resident pictures with all their information written on like 8.5 by 11 sheets. And I always wonder, does the staff even look at that when they're doing service? So how did eMenuChoice, how do you guys approach this concept of resident safety inside of your system?
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenuChoice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenuChoice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenuChoice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenuChoice, transforming dining for senior living.
Yeah, great question. And I think it's one of those things that appears to be easy to do. Hey, I have a list of residents and here's their allergies. I just need to make sure that I don't serve them anything that they're allergic to. But how does the person, that staff member that you just hired and it's their first day on the job, know that whatever they're serving the resident has soy in it or has wheat in it or whatever the allergen might be? So at eMenuChoice, what we do is each of your menu items more or less are identified as having allergens in those, or those that have allergens are identified. And we match that to the resident. If the resident is allergic to something, they can't order it. So the nice thing about it is it's automated. We have integrations with many or most of the major EHRs. So those allergens are coming to eMenuChoice in an automated fashion. You're not having to manually manage them at eMenuChoice. And then you're just adding those allergens to your food items as you add them to the menu. So you're not having to worry about it's Saturday morning, we're serving eggs and resident has accidentally served scrambled eggs, and even though they're allergic to it. So it really does help automate things. And again, going back to the original kitchen efficiency we were talking about, it's just one more thing that you can do from an efficiency standpoint to make sure that your residents are safe. And it's a requirement. You have to do that.
For sure. I'm hearing you talk about it. I just think about the turnover. You mentioned a new server. turnover in those frontline type positions is anywhere from 30 to 50%. So this thinking that, oh, the server that we've had for 15 years, well, she knows Mr. Jones and she knows Mrs. Smith and she understands that. That's all well and good. But what about the other 10 employees that constantly churn around her, right? Having that information right in front of you makes everything much more streamlined and efficient. So thinking again about kitchen efficiency, because I love that you keep coming back to that because there's this number that always has bothered me. It's the food waste in senior living. When you think about a commercial kitchen, like a restaurant or a hotel, they have anywhere from 7 to 9% waste. And that's not uncommon. That's a pretty good number. But when you move into a senior living kitchen, we're talking 17 to 20%, right? And for that number to double means that there are significant opportunities around tracking food usage, reducing waste. So when you think about implementing a system like eMenuChoice into your community, how can it impact, or how do you guys see it impacting your customers on that back end piece of food and waste?
Sure. So there's really two components to that. One is knowing what your residents like. eMenu Choice and most point of sales will provide you the ability to track what's ordered. So if I have an item on the menu 5 weeks ago, my special, and it's on the menu again, I can go back and see, well, 5 weeks ago, we had 45 of these chicken mozzarella ordered, or whatever the item is. And of course, we know that people tend to be creatures of habit and what they eat. And so if we had 45 last time, there's a really good bet that next time it's on the menu, it's going to be between 40 and 50. So I don't need to worry about making 60. I don't need to worry about making too few. We have a pretty good idea of what to make. But then the other part of that is, as we're looking at, what people have ordered, if I have things on my menu that are only ordered once or twice a quarter, I probably don't need those on my menu anymore. I don't need to stock ingredients for those. I don't need to worry about ingredients going bad because people haven't ordered those. So I can go ahead and make sure the items on my menu are relevant to my community and what I'm serving. So I can easily make sure that what we're having on the menu people like. And then going back to, if the community is really struggling with, and this happens quite a bit in assisted living and memory care. If the community is really struggling with, I want to offer more choice to residents. Boy, I just can't. I can't have 62 items on my menu because I can't select ingredients, et cetera. But you could have 10 items on the menu, or 10 choices. Ask the residents what they want ahead of time and make it on demand so that you're not wasting food. And a point of sale can either help with those pre-orders, but also at mealtime. I don't need to have a whole bunch of extra food prepared. If I'm taking the order at the time of the meal, I can go ahead and make it, and I'm not wasting a bunch of food that probably I don't is expensive, especially in today's world.
For sure. One thing about efficiency that we haven't talked about is all of the extra labor and time and tools or resources or everything that go around taking care of residents who want like a room service meal or who want to order their meals from their rooms. In the past, they would either have to pre-order, which is something I know a lot of operators are trying to get away from to create that more a la carte, like in on demand service. But if you're still in a manual system, somebody's got to go get that order from the room. Somebody's got to take it to the kitchen. Somebody's got to verify it. Maybe somebody at the front desk is taking a phone call and taking an order, and all of that can get missed. And so how does having a point of sale eliminate some of that, I'll call it time waste, if you will, for a process like a room delivery or a room service?
Sure. So one of the really nice things about a point of sale and room service is it opens the door, if you will, to orders coming from multiple places. Any menu choices case, we have an internet portal. A resident can log in. They can say, I want to have room service. They can pick the time of day that they want to have their meal delivered. The software can fold that order for them until the kitchen wants to get it to prepare it. So you don't have to worry about, I need to have all my orders in by noon so I can start getting them ready at 1 or anything like that. They'll just print a half hour or 15 minutes, however ahead of time that you want them. So And that same process works if the resident isn't comfortable with technology, they want to call the front desk or call the kitchen to place the order. They can call the front desk, and the front desk can write on their computer, enter that order for them, pick the time. Again, it'll go into the kitchen when the kitchen wants to get it. And then the kitchen, when the ticket goes there, it's going to tell them, hey, this is Mary Jones in room 312. Here's what she ordered. Here's what time she wants it. So they can get it all ready that way. And to take that a step further with the internet portal, one of the things we're really seeing take off is a lot of times people, particularly in higher acuity settings, have a hard time expressing what they want and making decisions as far as the types of food that they like. And so well, you might have an app that they can use or a website they can use to go in to log into it, or you may even give them a piece of paper to fill out every day.
Mm.
Do those residents actually do it? In some cases, they don't. Well, what if a family member could help them? What if a family member could log in on Sunday night and go through the menu with mom from their house and place all of those orders ahead of time? And then on the day of meal service, those are just there for the resident. And that's really a nice thing. And a lot of communities we talk to, it's not unusual that they have family members calling in either to the kitchen or to the front desk saying, hey, can you make sure that mom gets this today? Or can you make sure that mom gets that tomorrow? And if they could just do that themselves, think of the time the community saves in not having to enter those orders, keep track of them, remember to get it ready, match it up to the right resident. What if that all happens in the background? So there's a lot of ways that, and none of this necessarily is tied to a charge. Of course, a lot of times communities are charging for delivery, and we all understand why. I mean, A, it's staff time to do it, but B, the meal time is one of the most important times a day for a lot of these residents. It's the one time they can get out of the room, they can socialize, and having a delivery fee can be a nice deterrent or a nice way to encourage them to come to the dining room. And so, but if you have a delivery fee, but you forget to charge the resident every time you do it, how is that helping much? Where if you have software to do that for you, you're not going to forget.
Yeah, you're so dead on. And I didn't want to really dive into the revenue piece too much, but it's a 9 times out of 10, we do it as a nuisance charge. It's almost we prefer you to be out in the dining room and socializing as opposed to staying in your room. And so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because there's so many different ways that a community that isn't looking to generate tons of revenue from meal service can on the back end save expenses, which is just as good as generating revenue with being more efficient and having a better process and better systems. And so, Dan, as we wrap up here, what would be your one big takeaway for that community that's considering a system like eMenuChoice that isn't focused on revenue? They're really trying to just enhance what they're doing operationally.
I would say take a look at all of the paper you're pushing around today. How do you know if a resident's placed an order today for a meal? Do you have a report somewhere that you can look at? You're probably checking it off. How accurate is it? What if you forget to write it down? How are you tracking allergens? How are you making sure that the kitchen knows what people like and is offering choice to residents? These are all things that you can certainly do on paper, and many places do it. But if you think about the amount of time you spend on that, you're going to find that having a system that requires a moderate investment, and really the investment is in some time initially to get up and running, it's just going to continue to pay you back over time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Dan, how can people learn more about eMenuChoice, connect with you and the team there, and really start that process of determining how a point of sale can make their systems and operations better?
Sure. Well, if anybody wants to contact me directly, they can reach out to me at dan@emenuchoice.com. If you are interested in learning more about the software itself, simple email address as well, sales@emenuchoice.com. Go ahead and reach out there. Somebody will be in touch with you shortly after. And we always are interested in hearing from people, their experiences and things that they're looking to do. Our software is evolving and will continue to evolve around what the industry needs and desires.
Perfect. Well, Dan, thank you so much for kind of this deep dive in the non-revenue pieces of point of sale. I think that is it's so valuable to let the industry know that there's way more to it than just trying to get that extra dollar. And so this has been a really great conversation. So thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
You bet. Thank you, Aaron.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestle. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.